Ma'am, don't get in the car. The voice cut through the noise like a blade. Eva Langford froze, one hand still on the door handle of her sedan. For a heartbeat, she didn't move, just turned toward the shout echoing across the marble steps. A man in a gray janitor's uniform came running from the building, breathless, terrified, eyes locked on her like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Security moved fast. Two guards closed in, grabbing him by the arms. One shoved him against the glass wall, the other barked into a radio. The man struggled, voice cracking. "Please don't, something's wrong with that car." Ava's first reaction wasn't fear, it was irritation. She was 12 minutes behind schedule. Cameras were flashing across the street. People were staring. The CEO of Langford Industries could not be seen arguing with a janitor on a public sidewalk. "Ma'am, step back," her head of security ordered, positioning himself between her and the vehicle. His tone had shifted, less protocol, more instinct. That got her attention. She hesitated, lowering her hand from the chrome handle. The janitor's voice broke through again, raw and desperate. "You can't open that door, please, someone planted something." His words hit the air like sparks in dry grass. Planted something. Within seconds her world turned to chaos. Alarms from nearby cruisers, pedestrians backing away, a siren in the distance already drawing closer. The street filled with color, red and blue flashing light, the hum of engines, the bark of orders. Eva was pulled backward toward the lobby, her pulse matching the strobe of the sirens. Through the glass she watched the man drop to his knees, cuffed, still shouting her name. "Check under the car," he screamed. They said she'd never walk away. The guards forced him down, but his voice kept rising, trembling, breaking, until one phrase slipped out that made Ava's stomach twist. "Neurosynaptic decay, same as your brother." Her mind blanked. No one outside her inner circle knew those words. The chaos around her went silent for a second, just enough for doubt to crawl in. She looked at the trembling man in the uniform and whispered to herself, how could he possibly know that? Eva Langford didn't believe in superstition, only systems. She built her empire on structure, 6 on AM run, 7:30 briefing, every minute of every day organized into blocks of power. But that afternoon, as she watched the footage replay on her phone, the janitor screaming her brother's diagnosis like a confession, her order cracked for the first time in years. The boardroom had fallen silent after the incident. Public relations wanted a statement, legal wanted containment, security wanted distance, but Eva couldn't stop replaying one detail. The way the man's voice broke when he said her brother's illness, as if it wasn't information, it was grief. Her assistant hovered nearby. "Ma'am, should I cancel the 5 p.m. investor call?" Dangda shook her head, eyes still on the muted video. "No, keep it." Her tone was clipped, automatic. She couldn't afford cracks. Not here, not now. When the doors closed, she turned the volume up. They said she'd never walk away. "Same as your brother." Her hand trembled. Only 2 people had access to Kellen's medical file, her and the lead researcher at Langford Biotech. Not even her executive team knew the diagnosis. Neurosynaptic decay syndrome. A rare, cruel disease that stripped the brain's ability to send signals to the body, a slow paralysis of life itself. The project they funded was meant to be hope, not exposure. Yet somehow a janitor knew. Downstairs, 39 floors below her polished world, Liam Burns scrubbed the same marble floors where his outburst had erupted hours earlier. He worked in silence, eyes hollow, the same phrase looping in his mind. I had to stop her. The security chief had released him only because of Ava's last-minute order. "We'll handle it internally," she'd said, but internally meant fear. One wrong move and he'd lose the only job keeping his daughter fed. He pressed his mop harder, as if cleaning the tile could erase the memory of flashing lights and handcuffs. His hands were raw, his back tight from years of night shifts. But it wasn't the pain that wore him down. It was time. Time that ticked louder every day as his daughter's body betrayed her. Maya was 7. Too smart for her age, too thin for her clothes, and too kind for a world that kept taking. The doctors used words Liam barely understood. Degenerative, rapid progression, no approved treatment. Every appointment ended the same way. Silence, a printed bill and his daughter's small voice asking, "Did they find a cure yet, Daddy?" He always smiled and said maybe. He couldn't tell her that the miracle drug being tested in the same company he cleaned for was out of reach, hidden behind corporate walls and experimental labels. But when he'd found those shredded reports in the trash outside the executive lab, everything had changed. He'd pieced them together night after night, taping fragments on his kitchen table. That's how he'd found the name Langford Initiative. That's how he'd seen the term neurosynaptic decay. And that's how he knew Ava Langford wasn't just the face on the lobby portrait. She was the sister of the man listed as the trial's lead subject. In her penthouse office, Ava ended the investor call early. The meeting had been all numbers, share values, growth models, sterile optimism, but her mind was miles away. When she finally looked at her own reflection in the glass, she barely recognized it. Behind the sharp jaw and crisp white blazer, she looked tired, human. She poured herself a glass of water and stared at her brother's photo on the desk. Kellen, before the illness, the two of them on a sailboat, winged in their hair, the ocean endless behind them. He'd always called her the anchor, strong, unshakable, but lately all she felt was dread. The knock on the door came soft. Her head of security stepped in. We've confirmed his identity. Liam Byrne. Night maintenance. 7 years. No record, no history. He's got a sick child, ma'am. Ava's eyes flickered. He's a janitor. How could he possibly know about Kellen? That's what we're trying to find out. She nodded but said nothing more. The guard hesitated, then added quietly, "Ma'am." The man looked terrified, not violent. Just desperate. When he left, she opened her tablet, pulled up the internal employee registry, and stared at the small ID photo of Liam Byrne. Mid-30s, unremarkable. The kind of man you walk past 1,000 times and never see. Yet in one afternoon he'd cracked the armor she'd spent a lifetime building. Across the city, Liam sat beside his sleeping daughter, the glow of the old lamp flickering over her drawings. Crayon suns, crooked stars. A house with 2 stick figures, one tall, one small. In the corner she'd written in uneven letters, "Me and Daddy." He brushed her hair back gently, whispering a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "You'll be okay, Peanut. I'll find a way." Outside, the streetlights blinked on, one by one, like silent sentinels watching over the forgotten. In the tower above, Ava's office lights stayed on long past midnight. The same company that paid for her penthouse was the one that funded her brother's fading hope, and now somehow the janitor's desperation was tangled in it too. 2 worlds, one of polished glass, one of peeling paint, moving toward collision, and somewhere between them, a truth waited, patient and dangerous. "Sit down, Mr. Byrne." The voice came from across the small glass-walled conference room. The table gleamed like a mirror, reflecting the fluorescent ceiling lights that made everything feel colder than it already was. Liam sat stiffly, his palms flat on the table to hide the shaking. The head of security stood behind him, arms crossed. Across from him sat a woman in a gray suit, face unreadable, Langford Legal. She adjusted her glasses. "Do you understand why you're here?" He nodded weakly. "Because I stopped her from getting in that car." "You assaulted a senior executive during a public event," she corrected. "You caused a panic, cost the company a police response, and delayed a confidential board meeting. We need to know if this was premeditated." "It wasn't," Liam said quickly. "I was trying to protect her." The woman exchanged a glance with the guard. Protect her from what? He hesitated. The words sat like stones in his throat. If he told them everything, the shredded documents, the medical files, the disease, they'd call him insane. If he said nothing, he'd be fired. Either way, he was cornered. "I saw something," he said carefully, "in the waste bins outside the research division. Files that mentioned a trial, something called the Langford Initiative. It's about neurosynaptic decay." The door opened before he could finish. Ava Langford stepped inside. The air in the room shifted immediately. The legal counsel straightened. The guard stood taller. Liam froze. Seeing her up close was surreal, the CEO immaculate even now, but her expression wasn't anger. It was curiosity wrapped in suspicion. "Leave us," she said quietly. The lawyer started to object, but Ava's tone was final. "Now." When they left, silence filled the room. Only the soft hum of air conditioning and the faint traffic outside. Liam looked at his hands. "Ma'am, I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just—" "How do you know that word?" she interrupted. He looked up. Her eyes were sharp, controlled, but behind them flickered something else. Fear. "I told you," he said, voice trembling. "I found pieces of reports in the trash. I put them together. I saw your brother's name on one of them." She didn't flinch, but her knuckles whitened against the glass. "That's impossible. Those files are classified beyond internal clearance." "I know," he whispered. "That's why I thought, maybe someone was trying to hurt you too." Ava stared at him for a long moment. He wasn't lying. There was too much raw panic in his voice. Too much exhaustion. Still, she couldn't let emotion cloud her judgment. "You realize what you're admitting to," she said, her tone icy again. "You went through confidential waste, accessed medical information, and confronted me publicly. That's grounds for termination and prosecution." Liam lowered his head. "I know. Then why do it?" He hesitated, then spoke the words that had been clawing at his chest for months. "Because my daughter has the same disease." The room went still. He continued, each sentence cracking him open a little more. "She was diagnosed 6 months ago. They said there's no treatment, no cure. But then I saw those files. I recognized the drug codes, trial names. I thought maybe this company found something real, something that could save her. But the reports, they weren't progress reports. They were warnings, failed tests, people getting worse, some of them dying." Eva's composure slipped, just for a second. Her breath hitched. Then the mask returned. "You're saying you found proof that my company's research is harming people?" "I'm saying someone inside is lying to you," Liam said quietly. "And if you got in that car, they were going to make sure you never found out." The words hung between them like smoke. She wanted to dismiss him, to call for security, to tell herself he was delusional. But he'd said her brother's condition without hesitation, and no one, not even the board, knew that detail. Her mind raced. Could one of the researchers have leaked information? Could the car have actually been compromised? She straightened. "You'll stay in the building until further notice. My team will verify everything you've said." Liam blinked. "You believe me?" "I didn't say that," she replied. "But I don't believe in coincidence either." He exhaled shakily, relief and fear colliding. "Please. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I just need the truth." Eva studied him. The tired eyes, the frayed uniform, the dirt beneath his nails, the picture of someone life had stepped on too many times. She envied for a brief second how much he still cared about something. She'd buried that part of herself long ago. She tapped the intercom. "Graves, bring the car around. Secure it for forensics. No leaks, no reports to the press." "Yes, ma'am." When she looked back, Liam was watching her like someone drowning who'd just glimpsed a hand above the water. "You'll be escorted to the 50th floor," she said. "There's an empty conference room there. Wait until I call for you. Do not leave." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." As he was led away, Eva stayed seated. The faint scent of disinfectant lingered in the air where he'd sat. She pressed her palms together, thinking about what he'd said. They were going to make sure you never found out. Minutes later, she stood before the mirror in her private washroom, splashing cold water on her face. Her reflection looked steady, but inside something had cracked. Downstairs, Liam walked the silent corridors of the executive wing, a place he'd only ever seen from the outside. The walls were lined with motivational quotes, but all he could think about was Maya's face that morning, smiling at him with a bravery she didn't understand. He was terrified, not of losing his job, not even of arrest. What terrified him was that he might be right, and in another office high above, Eva was beginning to suspect the same thing. "Sit," she ordered. Liam obeyed without a word. The glass-walled conference room at the top of Langford Tower felt more like a fishbowl than a meeting space. The skyline stretched endlessly behind Eva, steel and light in distance. Between them sat a single file folder, unopened. "You said your daughter has the same condition as my brother," Eva began. "Neurosynaptic decay syndrome. You realize that's classified medical terminology." Liam nodded. "I learned it the hard way." Her tone was sharp. "You're a janitor, not a scientist. So tell me, how exactly did you come across that term? And why should I believe a word of what you said?" He hesitated. "Because I've seen what it does. Because I've lived every day watching it take someone I love." Eva leaned back, crossing her arms. "Emotion doesn't equal evidence. Do you have proof that my company or anyone in it has done something wrong?" Liam met her gaze, steady for the first time. "Proof? No. But I have pieces. Pieces of shredded reports, medical logs, and payment records from shell companies tied to Langford Biotech. I know what I saw. Someone's covering up failures. Real people are dying, not recovering, and I think your brother's one of them." Her eyes narrowed. "Careful. I'm not accusing you, ma'am," he said quickly. "I'm begging you to look." Silence filled the room. Eva stood, walking slowly toward the window. Below them, the city looked small and clean. A world she'd learned to control from a distance. "You know what I see, Mr. Byrne? A man desperate to find meaning in chaos, someone drowning in grief, trying to make the world smaller so it makes sense again." Liam's jaw tightened. You think this is grief? You think I want to believe my daughter's dying because of something you built? I think, she said coldly, you're reaching for someone to blame. He rose from his chair, the scrape of metal loud in the stillness. And I think you're afraid I might be right. Her eyes snapped to his. For a heartbeat neither moved. She hated that he'd struck a nerve that buried under her logic. His words had landed somewhere raw. You risked your life, your job, and your daughter's security for a hunch, she asked. I risked it because nobody else would listen, he replied. Because when your child's dying you don't wait for paperwork. You act. Ava crossed the room, stopping just a few feet from him. She'd faced hostile investors, journalists, even government officials, but this man unnerved her. His presence wasn't power, it was sincerity, and that was harder to fight. What exactly do you want from me, Mr. Byrne? I want the truth, he said simply. You have access to every file, every project. You can find out what they're hiding. She almost laughed. You think the CEO doesn't already know? His response was quiet, but it cut deep. Then either you're lying to me or they're lying to you. The words landed like a gavel. For the first time, Ava had no immediate reply. He continued, voice steady now. I don't need you to believe me. Just look. If I'm wrong, I'll walk out and never come back. But if I'm right, you'll understand why I couldn't let you open that car door. The mention of the car snapped her back to the morning's chaos. The flashing lights, his trembling voice, the strange fear in his eyes. It hadn't been anger. It had been warning. You're asking me to trust someone who broke protocol, who trespassed, who... I'm asking you to trust a father, he interrupted. The quiet that followed was heavier than any shouting match. Ava looked away first. Through the glass, the reflection of her own posture mirrored his, both standing, both tired, both trapped in different ways. When she finally spoke, her tone had softened, but only slightly. You said your daughter's name is Maya? Liam nodded. 7 years old. Smartest kid you'll ever meet. And she's still alive? He hesitated. For now. Ava studied him. For the first time she saw not an intruder but a mirror. One that showed her what fear looked like stripped of wealth and power. She moved toward the table, closing the folder she hadn't yet opened. I'll have my people verify your claims, she said. If you're lying, this conversation never happened. If you're telling the truth, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Then you just started a war you don't understand. He exhaled. I don't need to understand it. I just need her to live. Ava turned toward the door, her hand on the handle, then stopped. Tell me one thing, she said quietly. When you saw those reports, what made you so sure this wasn't just another failed trial? Liam's voice was hoarse, but certain. Because one of the test subjects was listed as deceased. And then I saw another file with the same ID number still active, marked for transfer. Avia's heartbeat quickened. Transfer to where? I don't know, he said. But whoever it was, they weren't supposed to be alive. For a long time she didn't move. Then she whispered, almost to herself, neither is my brother. The room went silent again. Outside the sun had slipped low, turning the skyline to gold and glass. Ava opened the door, motioning for Graves, her head of security. Keep him here until I say otherwise. Graves nodded, puzzled but compliant. Liam didn't resist. He sat back down, exhausted but strangely calm. For the first time in months he felt like someone had actually heard him. As the door closed behind her, Ava walked down the corridor toward her office, her mind racing. The janitor's claim was absurd, yet the way he'd said it, the precision of the details, it didn't feel like madness. It felt like a warning. She pressed her hand against her chest, realizing for the first time that her heart was pounding. And somewhere inside that thundering pulse, a single thought took root. What if he's the only one in this building telling the truth? Ava Langford had never been afraid of silence, until now. The executive suite was usually her sanctuary, the place where she could think, plan, control. Tonight it felt like a pressure chamber. The walls seemed to hum with everything she didn't want to face. She sat at her desk, hands motionless on the surface, staring at the empty search bar on her secure terminal. She'd typed one word, then deleted it. Neurosynaptic. Her instincts told her not to look. Her reputation told her to stay out of it. But the janitor's voice wouldn't leave her head. Someone's lying to you. She typed the word again. Then another. Langford Initiative. A restricted notice blinked across the screen. Access denied. Authorization required. Her password should have cleared that instantly. She tried again using an executive override. The same result. Her chest tightened. She called the research division directly. Dr. Finch's office. A smooth female voice answered. "It's Ava Langford. Patch me through to him." "I'm sorry, ma'am. Dr. Finch left early this evening. He said he'd be unreachable for 48 hours. Ova's throat went dry. "Unreachable? On my project?" "He said it was field verification, ma'am. He left instructions not to disturb the lab team until further notice." She hung up before she could respond. Her reflection in the darkened window looked alien. Still, polished, hollow. For the first time, her authority didn't feel like armor. It felt like a shell. She turned to the sideboard where her brother's medical reports sat neatly bound in blue folders. She flipped through them. The progress graphs, lab notes, optimistic projections, all signed by Finch. Every page looked perfect. Too perfect. She reached for her phone, opened the internal comm line. "Graves, I need the archived budget reports for Research Division 4. Past 12 months. Mark it urgent." "Yes, ma'am." She didn't tell him why. She couldn't explain that she was looking for ghosts, missing invoices, irregular transfers, anything that hinted the janitor's words had weight. When the files arrived 20 minutes later, she scanned line after line until something stopped her. Helios Analytics, consulting fees. She frowned. She'd never approved an external consulting firm. A quick search pulled nothing. The company didn't exist, at least not on any public registry. Her stomach dropped. Downstairs, in the glass room 50 floors below, Liam sat alone under the soft hum of the lights. The city outside was a grid of moving dots, too far away to touch. A security camera blinked in the corner, the quiet reminder that even solitude here wasn't private. He'd been sitting in silence for hours. He'd counted every tile, every reflection on the glass. He'd thought of calling a lawyer, then remembered he couldn't afford one. Finally, when the stillness grew unbearable, he spoke softly toward the camera. "Can I make a phone call?" A pause, then Graves's voice crackled through the intercom. "One call, speaker only." "Thank you." He gave them the number. After 2 rings, a small voice answered. "Daddy?" The sound nearly broke him. "Hey, Peanut. You didn't call after dinner," she said, a trace of worry in her tone. "I know. I got held up at work. Big mess tonight. I'm okay. Are you coming home soon?" He swallowed. "Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning." "Did you eat?" "Yeah. Mrs. Henderson made noodles." "That's good. You take your medicine?" "Yes." He could hear her flipping through her sketchbook on the other end. "I drew something for you. It's a castle again. But this one's stronger. It has a big gate so no one can get in." He smiled faintly, pressing his hand to his eyes. "That's perfect, sweetheart. You keep it safe for me, okay?" "Okay, Daddy." When she hung up, the silence returned, thicker than before. Graves' voice came over the speaker again. "Quieter now. She sounds brave." Liam exhaled slowly. "She doesn't know she has to be." The guard didn't reply, but something in his tone had softened. Above them, Ava's phone buzzed. A private message from legal police report filed. Incident closed as non-criminal per your directive. She ignored it. Her mind was miles away, back to the janitor's trembling words, back to her brother's hollow stare in his hospital bed. She looked again at the fraudulent invoice on her screen, the one name that didn't belong, Helios Analytics. She copied it into a new file. Then she opened another program, an encrypted archive few people even existed, and typed in the alias manually. A single document surfaced. Consultant Dr. Corbin Vance. Her breath caught. She remembered the name faintly, a biochemist blacklisted years ago for falsifying clinical data. He'd been banned from all legitimate research work. So why was his name buried inside her company's payment logs? Her hand trembled slightly as she saved the file. The system pinged a warning. Unauthorized access recorded. She didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking like a CEO. She was thinking like a sister. The weight of what Liam had said pressed down on her chest. Someone's lying to you. And maybe, just maybe, that someone was closer than she wanted to admit. In the quiet, she whispered to herself, what if he's right? Outside the glass, the city lights flickered. Somewhere below, a janitor whispered goodnight to his daughter. Somewhere above, a woman built her first doubt out of fear. Different floors, same silence, same question. Neither could stop asking. Who's really telling the truth? The elevator doors opened with a muted chime cutting through the stillness of the 50th floor. Liam looked up from where he sat half asleep at the table. His neck ached from the awkward angle he'd been resting in, his palms still marked with faint red lines from the cuffs that had since been removed. When he saw who stepped through the doors, he straightened immediately. Eva Langford. This time there were no guards, no lawyers, no audience. Just her, the immaculate CEO who now looked like she hadn't slept either. She carried a tablet tucked under her arm and a question already burning in her eyes. Liam's instinct was to stand, but she gestured for him to stay seated. "It's fine. We're not doing the power act tonight." Her tone wasn't cold, just tired. Controlled exhaustion. He nodded slowly. "Am I fired yet?" She almost smiled. "Almost. That depends on what you tell me in the next 5 minutes." He sat back down, wary. "You found something, didn't you?" Eva placed the tablet on the table, turning it toward him. On the screen was the same logo that had haunted her all night. Helios Analytics. Beneath it, the name Dr. Corbin Vance. Liam's eyes widened. "You know who he is?" "I do now," she said quietly. "He falsified trial data 5 years ago. Got people killed. He shouldn't be anywhere near a lab, much less one tied to my company." "So I wasn't lying." "No," she admitted. "Not about that." He exhaled, a shaky laugh of disbelief escaping him. "I thought you'd have me arrested before you'd ever admit that." Her gaze softened. "So did I." The silence that followed was fragile, almost peaceful. For the first time they weren't opponents. They were two people staring at the same shadow, each from opposite ends of privilege. Eva finally sat across from him. "Tell me everything you know. No edits. No assumptions." Liam rubbed his temples. "I found the first scraps about 3 weeks ago. They'd shredded everything: chemical data, payment memos, patient codes. But some words kept repeating: phase 4. Anomalous deterioration. Subject mortality withheld. I thought they were failures. Until I saw the signature at the bottom." "Finch," Eva murmured. He nodded. "Yeah. Dr. Alistair Finch. Head of research, right?" "Head of what used to be research," she said. Her voice had steel again, but it wasn't aimed at him. Liam leaned forward. "Whatever they're testing, it's not working. People are dying, and the data's being rewritten to look like success. My daughter's sickness, her doctor said there was a new treatment coming, but it never got approved. Then I see the same drug name in your reports." He paused, voice catching. "I didn't want to believe the company I cleaned floors for could be killing people trying to save them. But when I saw your brother's name on one of the trial notes..." He trailed off. Eva's jaw clenched. She stared at the table as if his words were chiseling into it. "My brother's not part of any active trial. He's at a private facility." "That's what they want you to think," Liam said gently. "They list subjects under numerical IDs, not names. But I saw it. ID 317KL. That's him, isn't it?" Her breath hitched. "How could you possibly know that code?" "Because Maya's file has the same prefix." Eva's head snapped up. "Your daughter?" He nodded. "Different sequence. Same family of trials. The same compound they're using on your brother. They prescribed it to my daughter under a compassionate exemption program. 2 weeks later, her symptoms got worse. Her hands shake so bad now she can't even draw straight lines." He spoke through clenched teeth, fighting the lump rising in his throat. "I thought it was just the disease progressing. But now I think it's the drug." For a long moment Eva said nothing. She stared past him, her mind reeling. The drug that had given her hope for her brother might have been the very thing accelerating his decline. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "My brother used to paint." Liam blinked. "What?" A faint smile tugged at her lips, brittle and far away. "He loved boats. Every weekend we'd go to the marina, and he'd paint the same sailboat from a dozen different angles. He said it looked different every time because the light changed, not the boat. After he got sick, the brushes started slipping from his hands. I told him it was just fatigue, that he'd get better." Her throat tightened. He stopped painting before he stopped walking. Liam's eyes softened. "Maya used to draw castles. She says the gates keep monsters out. I tell her sometimes monsters don't come from outside. They come from the people who say they're trying to help." Eva looked at him, and for the first time her expression cracked. Not in anger or fear, but in recognition. Two different worlds, same grief. They sat in silence, the city lights blinking faintly behind the glass. Finally, Eva spoke, her voice steadier. "I pulled the audit trail for the initiative. Finch's name appears on nearly every financial authorization. But the approval logs are forged. Some of the signatures look like mine, but they're not. My ID key was cloned." "So he's working behind your back," Liam said. "Yes, and using my name to fund it." "What are you going to do?" Eva leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Find him. Quietly. If this goes public, the entire board will turn on me before I can prove anything. I need evidence, something undeniable. Liam hesitated. I might know where to start. She raised an eyebrow. The documents I found, they mentioned a storage facility, North Valley Research Annex. It's not listed anywhere on the company site, but I've seen trucks leaving the compound after midnight. No markings, no paperwork, just lights off and drivers with badges from divisions that don't exist. Eva processed that, her mind already stitching together the map. You're certain? As certain as I was about that car. That line landed hard. Ava exhaled slowly. If what you're saying is true, I can't go through official channels. Finch will know the second I request access. Then don't go through them, Liam said. Go through me. She frowned. You? I know that building better than anyone. Every vent, every service duct, every blind corner. You built walls of glass and steel to keep people like me invisible. You forgot we're the ones who see everything. It was bold, maybe reckless, but Ava didn't dismiss it. Instead, she looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time, not as a janitor, not even as a whistleblower, but as an equal in the same battle. You're risking everything, she said. So are you, he replied. Difference is you have something to lose. I already did. That sentence lingered between them, heavy and honest. Ava stood picking up the tablet. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the glass wall beside him. You're right about one thing, Mr. Byrne. The light changes everything. Liam frowned. What do you mean? She gave a faint knowing smile. It's time to shine some on the dark corners. He didn't fully understand her yet, but he could tell something had shifted. The woman who'd entered the room ready to dismiss him was leaving with resolve in her eyes. Before stepping out, Ava turned back. I'll have Graves keep you on site under protection. No police, no press. This conversation never happened. If Finch suspects you spoke to me, you're as good as dead. Liam nodded slowly. Guess that means we're both in it now. She gave one final look, half warning, half understanding, and disappeared through the door. For a long moment, he sat in the dim room, the hum of the lights filling the silence she left behind. His fear hadn't disappeared, but something else had replaced it. Purpose. Above him, in the private elevator, Ava leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. The truth she'd been running from had finally caught her. Her brother wasn't just a patient anymore. He was evidence. And the janitor she'd nearly had arrested had just become her only ally. The next morning, the building woke as it always did. Buzzing phones, polished shoes, quiet urgency, but two people inside Langford Tower were operating under a different rhythm. Ava Langford's day usually began with briefings and market reports. This time it began in a maintenance corridor no executive had ever stepped foot in. The walls were dull gray, pipes running like veins overhead. The faint hum of machinery pulsed underfoot. Liam Byrne led the way, flashlight in hand. You sure you want to be down here? He asked over his shoulder. Your shoes probably cost more than the floor's worth. I needed to see where the real work happens, Ava said evenly. Besides, I'm not here as a CEO today. Then what are you here as? She hesitated. Someone trying to understand what she's built. They walked past the service conduits, the smell of metal and oil thick in the air. Liam stopped beside a wall panel and pressed his hand against it. Air duct runs from here to Research Division 4, the annex that's off limits after hours. Finch's lab, she murmured. He nodded. The vents feed directly into the lower archive rooms. If there's a secret server or hidden storage, it'll be in that area. I can get us through maintenance access, but we'll need security clearance to open the interior gate.
Ava crossed her arms. That's my part.
Their plan began to take shape in pieces, like blueprints drawn from memory. Liam sketched routes on scrap paper, showing ducts, blind camera zones, the rhythm of security patrols. Ava brought her digital overlays, employee schedules, server locations, internal audits. Together they pieced together a silent map of betrayal. Hours passed unnoticed. Somewhere between professional urgency and quiet purpose, the sharp line of hierarchy began to blur. When they paused for coffee, Liam caught her glancing at one of his notes, an old creased photo of Maya tucked beneath the papers. She's beautiful, Ava said softly. Yeah, he replied, smiling faintly. She says she wants to be a doctor. Says if she learns enough she can fix herself. Something in Ava's face shifted. My brother used to say that. When he was first diagnosed, he thought if he just read enough research papers, he could outsmart it. He stayed up all night reading clinical data he barely understood. I told him to rest. Did he listen? No, she said, voice breaking into the faintest laugh. He said he couldn't rest until he could feel his hands again. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness. It was recognition. Two different lives connected by the same helpless love. Liam folded the photo back into his notebook. People think grief hits when someone dies. But it hits when they start fading, and you can't do a damn thing to stop it.
Ava nodded. I know.
When they resumed work, it wasn't as strangers. The rhythm between them had softened. Liam began to show her the hidden layers of her own empire. The corner's executives never saw. The way the custodial team kept unofficial logs of which labs dumped shredded reports, which rooms smelled faintly of chemicals after hours, which shipments arrived when no one was scheduled. These people know everything, Ava said quietly. They see everything, Liam corrected. But no one asks them. Because who listens to the people holding the mob? She met his gaze. I'm listening now. By late afternoon, they had something close to a pattern, an irregular sequence of deliveries routed through a logistics shell labeled Helios Support Services. Every Friday the same van arrived, scanned into the loading dock, and left with no signature trail. The cargo logs read medical waste for incineration, except the weights didn't match. They were heavier leaving than arriving. Ava stared at the numbers. They're smuggling something out, not disposing of it. Liam leaned over the chart. Could be test samples, or patient data, or people, she said quietly. He looked at her sharply. Her voice faltered. There's a reason Finch hasn't let me visit my brother in 3 months. He says it's to minimize stress. But I think... She stopped, struggling to tiz. I think he's already moved him. Liam's hands curled into fists. We'll find out. They sat in silence, the hum of the machines around them filling the space. For the first time, Ava realized how little she'd truly known about the empire she ruled. The board meetings, the profit margins, the spotless press releases. None of it showed the people in the hallways, the broken lights, the fatigue behind the uniforms. Why do you still work here? She asked quietly. After everything you've seen. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Because hope's expensive, and she deserves at least a shot at it. Ava studied him for a long moment, then said softly, if what you've told me proves true, if Finch really did falsify data and put lives at risk, I'll make sure your daughter gets the treatment she needs. Real treatment. No more trials. No more lies. Liam blinked, unsure whether to believe her. You'd do that? For me? For her, she corrected. Because no child deserves to pay for someone else's greed. Something in him eased a crack of trust in a man who had forgotten what trust felt like. When they finally parted ways that evening, the mood was no longer one of suspicion. Ava left through the service elevator, unseen by her own staff. Liam stayed behind, double-checking routes, memorizing shift rotations. Before she left, she paused at the door. Liam, she said quietly, I need you to promise something. What's that? If this goes wrong, if I can't protect you, don't stop. Keep going. For her. He met her eyes. Only if you promise me the same. Her answer came without hesitation. I do. For a moment, two worlds, wealth and labor, authority and faith, balanced perfectly on a single human truth. Fear for someone they loved. When Ava stepped into her private car later that night, she didn't notice the city lights. Her mind was already moving. Files to pull, contacts to call. People she'd once trusted who might be enemies now. But underneath the strategy was something else. Not guilt. Not fear. Something rarer. Belief. Somewhere between the boardroom and the boiler room, she'd found the one thing that had been missing in her empire of control. A reason worth risking it for. And for the first time in years she wasn't alone. The first sign of trouble came quietly, an email that shouldn't have existed. Ava was in her office reviewing encrypted notes when the message flashed across her screen. Security breach detected. Confidential data leak. The sender Dr. Alistair Finch. No greeting. No explanation. Just a file attachment labeled evidence. Her pulse spiked. She clicked it open. The folder contained internal memos, timestamps and images of Liam Byrne taken from surveillance feeds. Footage of him entering restricted corridors, accessing maintenance panels near Division 4, and standing outside her private elevator. Every image was framed to look like espionage. And at the bottom of the email, it appears your janitor has been busy. I trust you'll handle this before the board does. Within an hour, the board called an emergency meeting. When Ava walked in, the atmosphere was colder than steel. Half a dozen directors sat around the long table, their faces carved with accusation. The chairman, a man she'd once mentored, gestured toward the projected screen showing Liam's ID photo. Care to explain why a maintenance worker under your supervision was caught accessing high-security research sectors? Ava tried to keep her tone calm. He wasn't caught. He was assisting me with an internal inquiry into Finch's department. Assisting you? The chairman's voice sharpened. Without clearance, without record, and without board authorization. You realize what that sounds like? It sounds like initiative, she said. The man came to me with evidence of falsified data and illegal experimentation. I was verifying his claims. Or covering them up, someone muttered. The room erupted with murmurs. Ava's control slipped for the first time. You think I'd risk my career to protect a janitor? Finch's voice came through the speakerphone, smooth and venomous. With respect, Ms. Langford, the footage suggests collusion. Sensitive files were accessed using your credentials just hours before the breach alert. My team traced the data extraction to a terminal in maintenance. That's impossible, she said, her throat tightening. Those logs were falsified. Then perhaps the janitor falsified them. Finch replied coolly. He seems quite resourceful. The board chair leaned forward. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending an internal investigation. Dr. Finch will assume temporary oversight of research and operations. The decision hit like a physical blow. Ava opened her mouth to protest, but the faces around her told her everything. Fear, loyalty to stock prices, not truth. She was outnumbered. By the time she returned to her office, security had already begun disabling her key access. Her nameplate was still on the door, but it suddenly looked like a relic. Meanwhile, downstairs, Liam was cleaning the same hallway he'd walked with Ava just the day before when two security officers approached. Liam Byrne? He straightened, gripping the mop handle like a weapon. Yeah? You need to come with us. For what? Data theft. Corporate sabotage. The words hit him like a brick. You've got the wrong guy. They didn't answer. One of them grabbed his arm, and he jerked away. You think I have access to your precious data? I barely have access to the damn vending machine. They cuffed him anyway, dragging him through the lobby where the same employees who once ignored him now watched with quiet satisfaction. The invisible man had finally become visible, for all the wrong reasons. By the time Ava heard, it was too late. Her calls to legal went unanswered. Finch's team had already submitted proof of Liam's crimes. A doctored keycard log, an edited video of him copying data, even forged emails between him and a supposed journalist contact. Finch had thought of everything. Bava's car sat idle outside the tower, her driver waiting for instructions she couldn't give. She stared out the window, mind racing, heart pounding. Her entire world, her company, her credibility, her brother's care, had been hijacked by a man she once trusted. And now, the only person who'd stood by her was being framed as the villain. She called Graves. Where are they taking him? Detention wing, lower level, he said quietly. But listen, Finch has people watching every exit. If you try to intervene, they'll accuse you too. They already did, she whispered. Then what do you want me to do? Ava's eyes hardened. Keep him alive, whatever it takes. Down in the detention room, Liam sat chained to a steel chair. His face was bruised, his voice hoarse from shouting. Across the table sat a compliance officer asking the same questions on repeat. Who are you working for? How long have you been leaking information? For the 100th time, Liam said, exhausted. I don't even know how to turn on half your computers. Then how did your fingerprints end up on classified printouts? Because I cleaned desks, genius. The officer didn't respond. He simply pressed a button on the recorder. Mr. Byrne, until further notice, you're suspended without pay and barred from all corporate premises. Pending legal review, your urine status will be terminated. Liam leaned forward, rage trembling in his voice. You're letting them bury people and you're worried about your payroll? Watch your tone. He laughed bitterly. Tone? My kid can't hold a pencil anymore, and you want me to mind my tone? The guard behind him stepped closer, but Liam didn't back down. For the first time he felt a kind of clarity. Not peace, but purpose. They could destroy his job, his name, even his freedom, but they couldn't take the truth from him. Hours later, as the guards escorted him through the back corridors toward the exit, he caught sight of someone in the shadows near the service elevator. Ava. Her disguise was crude. Hooded coat, tinted glasses, but the look in her eyes said everything. I'm sorry, she whispered as he passed. They're going to kill this story, he said quietly, and maybe us with it. Not if I find Finch first, she replied. He's moving something out of the annex tonight. I traced the delivery orders. Then go, he said. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for proof. Go before he burns it all. She hesitated. I can't protect you anymore. You already did, he said softly. You made me believe someone up there still cared. Fiava wanted to say more, but the guards pushed him forward. She watched him disappear into the night, his figure swallowed by the glare of the floodlights. By the time the doors shut, she was already dialing a secure number. Graves answered. Ma'am, meet me at North Valley, she said. Midnight. As she hung up, she glanced once more toward the empty hall, her reflection fractured in the glass. Finch thought he'd trapped them both, but he'd just made the mistake of showing her how deep the rot went. And while Liam Byrne walked out into the dark, stripped of everything but conviction, Ava Langford was preparing to burn down the house she'd built, just to see what crawled out of the ashes. The Langford Tower slept under a curtain of fog, its glass skin reflecting nothing but the city's faint pulse. Inside, on the 47th floor, Ava Langford moved like a ghost. She no longer had access badges or clearance codes. Her nameplate had been stripped from the executive directory that morning, but she still knew every inch of her own creation. The emergency override panels, the secondary server ports, the maintenance routes. Finch believed she never bothered to learn. She'd learned them all last night from the janitor he framed. Now she was using his maps like a weapon. Ava reached the research server hub just past midnight. The air smelled faintly of ozone, humming with the low buzz of power. On the desk was a secured data core, a small silver drive stamped with the Langford logo. To anyone else it was just another backup. To Ava it was the vault of truth. She slid the drive into her tablet. A cascade of encryption keys filled the screen. Access denied. The message flashed again and again, until a single prompt appeared. User authorization, Dr. Alistair Finch. Her reflection glared back at her from the screen. Then she smiled, cold and patient. She'd anticipated this. From her coat, she pulled a stolen access chip, swiped from Finch's assistant earlier that evening with the help of Graves. The device blinked green. The system unlocked. Lines of code, transformed into reports, clinical notes, chemical data, patient progress charts. At first it looked like science, structured, objective, clean, but the deeper she read, the uglier it became. Trial Phase 4, subject mortality rate. Report adjusted for public filing. Method, redaction cost sample reallocation. She scrolled faster, nausea rising. Each entry was worse than the last. Failed tests, misreported results and payments to independent review consultants that didn't exist. And then she saw it. Subject ID 317K, L, Kellen Langford. Notes, Stage 5 neural degradation, no longer viable for study. Termination protocol initiated, see Dr. Vance. Her heart stopped. Termination. She blinked, reread and blinked again. The word didn't change. Her brother, the person whose illness had driven her to pour billions into this research, had been reclassified as a failed subject. They weren't treating him anymore. They were using him. And worse, they were going to erase him. Her hands trembled. The world narrowed to the words on that screen. The betrayal coiled inside them like a living thing. She downloaded the files to her encrypted drive, heart pounding, every second feeling like stolen time. Then a sound. A faint electronic chirp from the security console. She turned. The cameras in the corner shifted. Someone else was watching. Move, Ava, she whispered to herself. Move now. She ripped the drive from the tablet and slipped it into her pocket, exiting through the maintenance stairwell Liam had shown her. The footsteps she heard above weren't hers. Finch's men were already sweeping the floor. By the time she reached the underground parking deck, her car's alarm had been disabled. Graves was waiting in a black SUV. Did you get it? She nodded, breathless. All of it. He drove without headlights, until they hit the freeway. Ava stared out the window, her mind already 3 steps ahead. Legal channels were useless now. The board was compromised. Finch controlled the narrative, and the truth would waddy the moment he scrubbed the data servers. She needed an outside witness, someone uncorrupted, someone who already had nothing left to lose. Liam Byrne. Silva. He hadn't been easy to find. After his arrest, he'd disappeared from the system, escorted out of the tower under security quarantine. But Graves had quietly tracked him to an old industrial motel near the outskirts, a place where tired men went to vanish from the world. When Ava entered his room, he was sitting by the window, staring at his daughter's drawing taped to the wall, a castle, slightly smudged, the word safe written in uneven crayon at the top. He didn't turn around. If you're here to apologize, don't. I'm not, she said softly. I'm here to finish what we started. That made him turn. His eyes were bloodshot. his jaw set. You're serious. She placed the small drive on the table between them. Finch is falsifying the data. I have proof. Trials, payments, human testing logs. My brother's name is in there. They called Hell non-viable. They were going to terminate him. Liam stared at her. The words hit like thunder. Terminate. She nodded. And not just him. There are others. The facility at North Valley. That's where they're holding the subjects. Finch plans to purge the data tomorrow morning and move the remaining patients off record. Liam stood, pacing, fists clenched. So he buries the evidence, and we're just supposed to watch. No, Ava said, eyes sharp. We expose him before he does it. He stopped pacing. Expose how? He's got the board, the police, the whole damn city believing we're the problem. Then we go where his authority doesn't reach, she said. The media won't touch us without verification, but if we deliver the internal logs to the Federal Ethics Bureau before the servers are ripe, it'll force a public inquiry. We just need to get in and extract the full patient archive. Liam shook his head. That's suicide. That place is locked down tighter than a military base. I know, she said quietly. That's why I need you. He stared at her, disbelief melting into something else. Recognition. You know those tunnels better than anyone. She continued. The old sanitation conduit you mentioned? It connects to the sub-basement where the old trial servers used to be. Finch doesn't even know it's accessible. It's our way in. And your way out? Her voice dropped. There might not be one. The silence stretched. Liam's eyes flicked toward the drawing on the wall. He exhaled. My daughter. If this works, Ava said, she'll get the treatment she deserves. Not a lie in a syringe. Real medicine. I swear it. He looked at her, measuring her words. You still trust yourself to make promises like that? No, she admitted, but I trust you to make me keep them. Something in him broke, not faith, but resistance. He sat down again, rubbing his face with both hands. When do we go? Tonight, she said. Before dawn. Graves entered the room then, setting a folder on the table. Aerial schematics, facility guard rotations, power grid overlays. We've got a 6-hour window, he said. After that, Finch's data sweep begins. Once the purge triggers, every file tied to the initiative is gone. Forever. Eva opened the folder, tracing the routes with her finger. We go through the drainage line here. It merges under the west wall of the research wing. We'll have to bypass motion sensors, but the system is on manual at night. Graves handles the entry. Liam, you guide us to the sub-basement. Liam looked at the map, and after we get the data, we release it directly to the Bureau through a secure relay. Once it's public, they can't bury it again. He nodded slowly. Then we get your brother out. Her voice softened. Yes. And anyone else left behind. Graves frowned. Ma'am, with respect, we're talking about breaking into your own facility. This isn't an audit. It's an operation. Eva met his gaze. Then we treat it like one. He gave a grim smile. Then we'd better move fast. As the team prepared to leave, Ava lingered by the window. Beyond the glass, the city glimmered, indifferent, alive. She thought of her brother's laugh, the sound of his brush against canvas. She thought of Liam's daughter, drawing castles to keep out monsters that wore lab coats. For the first time in her career, she wasn't calculating outcomes. She was gambling on conviction. She turned to Liam. Once we go in, there's no turning back.
He nodded.
There wasn't. The moment you walked into my closet with that tablet. A small smile touched her lips. Then, let's make sure this ends where it should have started, with the truth. Outside, the night deepened into something restless. In a few hours, the building that had created miracles on paper and monsters in secret would face the light. Eva Langford and Liam Byrne, stripped of title and power, were walking back into its heart, not to save reputations, but to save what little humanity still lived inside it. The trap had closed. The evidence was real. Now came the part neither of them could undo. The air in the forest was heavy with mist and silence. The headlights cut narrow paths through the dark as the SUV crawled along the gravel road toward the hidden facility. Inside, Ava Langford checked the clock on her wrist display. 2:03 a.m. The purge would begin at 4. Liam sat beside her, wearing the same gray maintenance uniform he'd worn the day they met. The smell of oil still clung to it. Graves, stoic as ever, drove up front, scanning the perimeter through night vision lenses. Last chance to turn back, Graves muttered. No, Ava said firmly. We end it tonight. Liam leaned forward, studying the schematic lit up on the dashboard. Drain access point should be about 50 yards past that fence. Cameras rotate every 40 seconds. We have a 10-second window. Graves killed the headlights. We'll make it count. They parked the vehicle behind an abandoned utility shed. The night was soundless, except for the distant hum of generators. Graves cut the wire fence, and one by one they slipped through. Ava first, then Liam clutching the small encrypted drive to his chest. The drainage culvert loomed ahead, half hidden by weeds, its mouth a circle of shadow. Liam knelt, removing the rusted grate with a soft groan of metal. Cold air wafted out, chemical, sharp and sterile. "You're sure this leads inside?" Ava whispered. "I've cleaned the pipes that feed this system," he said. "Trust me, it does." Graves went first, crawling into the narrow tunnel with the quiet precision of a soldier. Ava followed, her breathing tight and shallow. The steel scraped at her knees, every sound magnified in the echoing dark. Liam came last, closing the grate behind them. For 20 minutes they crawled through the guts of the building. Air ducts, drainage vents, forgotten service shafts. Every so often Graves would signal a pause as the low rumble of machinery above hinted at security patrols. Finally they reached the maintenance junction beneath the sub-basement. Graves removed a small tool from his belt and pried open the hatch. A thin line of white light poured through. They emerged into a cavernous hall of polished concrete and humming equipment. The temperature dropped instantly, air filled with antiseptic chill. To Ava it felt less like a lab and more like a tomb. Rows of sealed chambers lined the far wall, opaque glass tubes with faint silhouettes inside. Her stomach turned. Liam's voice trembled. "Are those people?" Graves checked a nearby console. "Subjects. Cryogenic suspension." He looked up. "They're alive." Ava stepped closer to one of the tubes. Through the frost-coated glass, she could make out a pale face. Young, unconscious. Tubes running from his arms and chest. The display read, "Neural decay stage 3. Experimental treatment. Ongoing." Her throat tightened. They never stopped the trials. From somewhere deeper in the facility came the sound of footsteps. Graves signaled for silence. 3 guards walked past the corridor, armed, unaware. When their voices faded, he turned back to the others. "We move now. Control rooms above this wing. That's where Finch will be purging the servers." They ascended a maintenance stairwell, Liam leading. He moved with uncanny familiarity, every corner etched into memory. His hands, calloused from years of cleaning these same halls, found switches and hidden locks effortlessly. When they reached the control deck, Ava peeked through the glass window and froze. Dr. Alistair Finch stood inside, hunched over a console. Beside him 2 technicians monitored progress bars crawling across their screens. "Data deletion." Finch's voice was calm, almost cheerful. "By sunrise, there'll be no record of this project. No oversight. No liability. Langford will be nothing but a story we corrected." Ava's rage tightened to a fine, sharp edge. "He's erasing everything," she whispered. Graves nodded. "We need the core storage drive. It's that unit on the left rack." Liam frowned. "That's tied into the security grid. Pull it wrong and alarms go off." "We won't have time to be subtle," Ava said. "We take the risk." Graves cracked the door open, and that's when everything exploded into motion. A technician spotted movement. "Sir." Before Finch could turn, Graves shoved the door wide and fired a warning shot into the ceiling. "Step away from the console." Chaos erupted. Finch backed up, hands raised, eyes narrowing when he saw Ava enter. "Ava," he said softly, almost amused. "You shouldn't be here. You killed my brother's chance at life," she said. "You lied to me, to everyone." Finch chuckled. "Your brother was already dead, Ava. I just refused to let his body go to waste." Liam lunged forward, fury breaking through reason. "You're sick." Guards swarmed in from the side corridor. Graves fired again, dropping the first one. "Move," he shouted. Ava sprinted to the data rack, yanking the drive from its slot. Sirens wailed instantly, red lights flaring, alarms screaming through the lab. Finch ran for the opposite exit. Graves turned to cover them. "Go, I'll hold them off." Ava shook her head. "Not without you." He smiled grimly. "You'll waste what we started if you stay. Get the proof out." Before she could protest, he pushed her through the door and sealed it from the inside. Through the glass panel she saw him turn back toward the advancing guards, steady, fearless. Gunfire echoed, then silence. Liam pulled her forward. "We have to move." They ran through the maze of hallways, alarms still screaming overhead. Finch's voice blared through the intercom. "Security lockdown initiated. Intruders in Wing D, neutralize on sight." They burst into a lower corridor, the medical wing, ahead. One chamber door remained open, the light inside flickering weakly. Ava froze mid-step. Her brother, Kellen Langford, lay on a gurney, frail and unmoving, wires and tubes snaking from his body. His chest rose shallowly. Eva stumbled forward, voice cracking. "Kellen, it's me." His eyelids fluttered. "Ova?" The whisper barely escaped his lips. She knelt beside him, tearing out the IV lines. "We're getting you out." Finch's voice echoed from the doorway behind them. "You shouldn't have seen this, Ava." She turned slowly. Finch stood there, blood on his sleeve, pistol aimed at her. "You've already lost," he said. "By morning, this place will be dust, and your name with it." Liam stepped between them. "You don't get to walk away from this." Finch sneered. "A janitor playing hero? Do you even understand what we've done here? We cured death itself." "You commodified it," Ava spat. "Turned life into leverage." He cocked the pistol. "Step aside." Liam didn't move. Finch fired. The sound cracked through the sterile air. Liam dropped to one knee, clutching his side. Ava screamed, grabbing a fallen metal tray and hurling it at Finch. The impact threw him off balance. His gun clattered away. Liam lunged, despite the wound, tackling Finch to the floor. The two struggled, shouts, grunts, metal scraping tile. Ava grabbed the gun, her hands trembling. "Liam, move!" He rolled aside. She fired. Finch fell back, eyes wide with shock. The echo lingered long after he stopped moving. The lab was silent except for the rhythmic beeping of Kellen's monitor. Ava dropped the gun, tears blurring her vision. Liam staggered up, pale but standing. "You all right?" she asked. He gritted his teeth. "Could be better." "Can you walk?" "Doesn't matter. We've got what we came for." She held up the core drive. "Every file, every crime." Then she looked down at her brother, unconscious but alive, and him. Together they wheeled the gurney toward the corridor. Behind them, smoke filled the air. The result of Graves's final stand, the alarms still blaring in protest. Ahead, the tunnel yawned open like an escape route to daylight. As they pushed forward, Liam's voice broke the silence. "He bought us this chance. Let's not waste it." Eva nodded, jaw set. "We won't." They vanished into the darkness, dragging the truth in the barely breathing man who embodied it. When they emerged into the cold dawn air, the forest was quiet again. But in Ava's hands, the drive pulsed with a faint blue light, proof that justice had survived the night. The sun rose slow and colorless over the North Valley compound. Smoke drifted above the tree line, faint and gray, a quiet memorial to everything that had burned through the night. Ova stood beside the ambulance, her brother wrapped in blankets, IV still in his arm. Paramedics moved around them, their voices soft but efficient. Liam sat nearby on the rear bumper, his side bandaged, his face pale with exhaustion. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them said enough. Sirens approached from the distance, not alarms this time, but justice. Within minutes, black vehicles bearing federal insignia pulled onto the property. Agents poured out, swarming the facility. Orders crackled over radios: secure the East Wing, contain all lab personnel, get the servers. Eva handed the core drive to the lead agent. "Every file you need is on this," she said. "Trial records, falsified reports, payment trails. It's all there." The agent gave a curt nod. "Dr. Finch?" She looked back toward the building where smoke still curled from the shattered windows. "He's gone," she said quietly, "along with everything he stood for." By mid-morning the arrests began. Scientists, security staff, and board collaborators were led out in handcuffs. Cameras from early media crews captured the moment. The fall of a company once hailed as visionary. The Langford Initiative, once a symbol of progress, had become the epicenter of scandal. Eva watched it unfold with detached calm. Her name was already splashed across headlines. CEO under investigation after whistleblower exposes illegal trials. But she didn't care. The truth was out. Later at the hospital, she stood in her brother's room. Kellen's face was peaceful, color returning to his cheeks. Machines hummed quietly around him, no longer weapons but guardians. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. "It's over," she whispered. "You're safe now." Behind her, Liam leaned against the doorway. "He's a fighter," he said softly. "So are you," she replied. He gave a faint smile. "Not sure I've got much fight left." "You saved him," she said. "You saved a lot more than that." For the first time he didn't deflect the praise. He just looked at her and nodded, tired but proud. A week later, the press gathered in front of Langford Tower. Reporters clustered around microphones, cameras flashing in the early light. Ava stood at the podium in a black suit, her posture steady though hers trembled slightly when she began. Langford Industries was built on the promise of healing, she said. But under my watch, that promise became an excuse for exploitation. I failed to see what greed was doing to the work, and in the people who trusted us. She paused, scanning the crowd. Effective immediately, I am resigning as CEO. The company's remaining assets will be liquidated to fund a new independent foundation for rare disease research. It will loll under public oversight, transparent to every family who ever believed in a cure. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, but Ava kept her gaze steady. My brother is alive today because someone refused to be silent. Someone who saw truth when I was too blinded by success to recognize it. At the edge of the audience, Liam stood quietly, his daughter's small hand clasped in his. Maya wore a yellow sweater, her favorite color. She squeezed his hand tighter as Ava's voice carried through the square. And the heroes don't always wear lab coats or sit in corner offices, Ava said. Sometimes they hold a mop or fight for a child no one else will fight for. Today, I thank the man who reminded me what integrity looks like. The cameras swung toward Liam. For a second he looked ready to disappear into the crowd. But Maya tugged his sleeve and whispered, "That's you, Daddy." He smiled, eyes wet. When the speech ended, Ava stepped down from the podium. Reporters shouted questions, flashes blinding, but she ignored them all, heading straight toward Liam. "You didn't have to do that," he said when she reached him. "Yes, I did," she replied. "You kept your promise. Now I'll keep mine."
What about you? He asked. What happens now?
She glanced back at the tower, her legacy and her burden. "I rebuild," she said simply, "from the ground up. The right way this time." Maya peeked out from behind her father's arm. "Miss Ava," she said shyly, "my hands don't shake anymore." Ava knelt to meet her eyes, smiling through tears. "Then you're already stronger than all of us." For a moment the three of them stood together, a CEO without a company, a janitor with a scar but no shame, and a little girl who represented everything they'd almost lost. That night, as the city lights flickered on, Ava watched the news from her brother's recovery room. The footage showed Finch's arrest, the foundation announcement in one quiet clip of Liam leaving the press area with Maya on his shoulders. The anchor's voice said, "Authorities confirm the Langford Initiative scandal as one of the largest corporate ethics breaches in recent years. Sources indicate the whistleblower will not face charges and is being considered for commendation." Ava turned off the TV, exhaling slowly. For the first time in years she felt something unfamiliar. Not victory, not relief, but peace. Across town, Liam tucked Maya into bed. She hugged her sketchbook, now filled with drawings of open skies and bright suns instead of castles and gates. "Can we visit Miss Ava tomorrow?" she asked, sleepily. "Maybe," he said. "She's got a lot of fixing to do." Maya smiled. "Then we'll help." He laughed softly, brushing her hair back. "Get some sleep, sunshine." When he turned out the light, he lingered by the door, the quiet hum of the city outside. His world wasn't perfect. Bills still waited. The scar on his side still ached, but it was honest now. And somewhere, in another building far above the skyline, a woman who once ruled from glass walls was learning to live like everyone else, grounded, flawed, and finally free. Spring came quietly that year. The city felt lighter somehow, its towers still tall but less cold, as if the air had learned how to breathe again. At the new Langford Foundation Clinic, sunlight spilled across pale blue walls where children's drawings hung instead of corporate plaques. The hum of machines had softened, replaced by the low chatter of families in recovery. In one of the garden courtyards, Kellen Langford sat under a tree sketching, his right hand still trembling slightly, but steady enough to hold a pencil again. His sister watched from a few feet away, pretending to read but really just listening to the scratch of graphite against paper, the sound she thought she'd never hear again. "Still boats?" she asked gently. He smiled without looking up. "Always boats, but this time they're docked. I think they've earned a rest." Eva laughed softly. "We all have." From across the courtyard came a small voice. "Miss Ava." She turned just in time to see Maya running toward her. Yellow sweater bright as sunlight. Behind her, Liam walked slower, a faint limp still in his step but a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Maya carried a folded piece of paper and handed it to Ava proudly. It was a drawing, two boats side by side, one large, one small, tied together by a single rope. Above them, in uneven handwriting, she had written, "Safe now." Ava knelt to her level. "It's beautiful." It's for you, Maya said. Daddy says it's good to keep reminders. Of what? That sometimes people who clean up messes are also the ones who save lives. Liam winced slightly. She overhears more than she should. Ava smiled. She's right, though. Kellen looked up from his sketchpad and waved. You must be Maya, he said. The artist who saved my sister. Maya giggled. I didn't. Daddy did. Then both of you, Kellen said warmly. The four of them sat together under the tree. For a long while, no one spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was full, peaceful, alive. Birds chattered from nearby branches. The faint breeze smelled of cut grass, and something like hope. Liam finally broke the quiet. So, what now for you? Eve exhaled slowly. We rebuild. The foundation's growing. We're funding early-stage research through independent labs only. No shareholders, no manipulation, transparent trials. Every result made public. She smiled faintly. Kellen calls it my penance project. He chuckled. Could have fooled me. Looks like purpose to me. She looked at him. And you? He shrugged. I'm back part-time. Maintenance supervisor at the clinic. Pays better. Hours are worse, he said with a grin. But Maya's doing real treatment now, no side effects, no lie. Ava's voice softened. She deserves the world. She's already got more of it than I ever did. Kellen leaned back against the tree trunk, eyes half closed. You both remind me of something Dad used to say, he murmured. He said people think value is written in ledgers and titles, but life keeps a different kind of record.
Ava looked at him. What kind?
The human kind, Kellen said. Kindness, courage, decency. That's the real ledger, and it always balances out eventually. Liam smiled at that. Guess we all broke even then. Maybe, Ava said, her gaze distant but calm. Or maybe we just finally stopped counting the wrong things. Maya, lying on the grass now, held her drawing up to the sunlight. The boats look happy, she said dreamily. They are, Ava whispered. For a moment the world felt still, like a story that had found its last page but chose to linger a little longer. Kellen began to sketch again. Liam closed his eyes against the breeze, and Maya hummed a song only she seemed to know. Ava sat quietly, absorbing it all. The people, the light, the peace she once thought impossible. This wasn't the ending she'd imagined when she built empires. It was smaller, quieter, infinitely more human. She turned her face toward the sun, a smile ghosting her lips. Every life leaves a mark, she murmured. The only question is, what kind? If this story moved you, take a moment to share it. Tell us where you're watching from, and one word that describes how it made you feel. Every comment, every share keeps these stories alive, reminding the world that integrity, love, and compassion still matter. The human legend.